In the late 1500s, a small group of English settlers arrived on a remote island off the coast of North America. They came with hope. Hope for a new life, hope for land and opportunity, and hope for a future far away from England. But what happened next would become one of the greatest mysteries in American history. An entire colony disappeared without a trace. There were no bodies, no clear clues, and no records explaining what happened. Only one strange word carved into a tree remained behind. This is the story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. During the late 1500s, England was eager to expand its power across the Atlantic Ocean. Spain had already established powerful colonies in the Americas and had become extremely wealthy from the New World. England wanted its own place in this new land. In 1584, an English explorer named Sir Walter Raleigh organized an expedition to explore the eastern coast of North America. The explorers discovered a beautiful island along what is now the coast of North Carolina. They named it Roanoke Island. The land seemed promising. There were forests, fresh water, and nearby Native American communities. England believed this place could become the first permanent English settlement in North America. In 1585, England sent its first group of colonists to Roanoke Island. However, things quickly went wrong. The settlers struggled to find enough food and had difficulty adapting to the unfamiliar environment. They depended heavily on supplies from England, which arrived slowly and irregularly. At the same time, tensions began to grow between the settlers and nearby Native American tribes. Within a year, the situation became too difficult to manage. The colonists decided to abandon the settlement and return to England. For many people, that would have been the end of the Roanoke story, but England was not ready to give up its dream of establishing a colony in the New World. 2 years later, in 1587, a second and much larger group of settlers sailed once again to Roanoke Island. This time the group included not only men but also women and children. These were not just explorers or soldiers. They were families hoping to build a permanent community. The colony was led by a man named John White. He was an artist, a map maker, and the governor of the new settlement. Among the settlers was his daughter, Eleanor Dare. Shortly after arriving on the island, Eleanor gave birth to a baby girl named Virginia Dare. She became the first English child born in North America. For a short time, it seemed as though the colony might finally succeed. However, life in the New World quickly proved to be extremely difficult. Food supplies were limited, farming was challenging, and relations with nearby Native American tribes once again became tense. The settlers realized they needed more supplies and additional support if they were going to survive. Because of this, they asked Governor John White to sail back to England and bring help. It was a difficult decision, but it seemed necessary. In late 1587, John White left Roanoke and sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to gather supplies. He promised the colonists that he would return as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, events in Europe made that promise impossible to keep. Shortly after White arrived in England, war broke out between England and Spain. The powerful Spanish Armada was preparing to attack England, and the country needed every available ship for defense. Because of this, John White was unable to sail back to Roanoke. Weeks turned into months, and months eventually turned into years. White waited desperately for permission to return, but the war continued to delay his journey. Nearly 3 years passed before he was finally able to secure a ship and sail back to the colony. In 1590, John White finally returned to Roanoke Island after a long and difficult journey across the Atlantic. As his ship approached the island, he expected to see signs of life: homes built by the settlers, people working in the fields, and smoke rising from chimneys. Instead, he found something deeply disturbing. The entire settlement was empty. Every single colonist had disappeared. White and his crew carefully searched the area for clues. The houses were gone, but there were no signs of destruction. The buildings had not been burned or violently destroyed. Instead, it looked as if the settlers had carefully taken the structures apart. There were no bodies and no signs of a struggle. It was almost as if the entire colony had quietly packed up and moved somewhere else. While searching the abandoned settlement, John White noticed something carved into a wooden post. It was a single word: CROATOAN. The same word had also been carved into a nearby tree. CROATOAN was the name of a nearby island as well as the name of a Native American tribe that lived there. Before leaving for England, White had made an agreement with the settlers. If they were forced to leave the colony, they would carve the name of their new destination into wood so that he would know where they had gone. If they were in danger, they would carve a cross symbol. However, there was no cross carved anywhere, only the word CROATOAN. This suggested that the colonists may have relocated to CROATOAN Island. John White wanted to investigate further, but unfortunately another disaster occurred. A powerful storm hit the area and forced his ship to leave before he could search for the missing settlers. John White never returned to Roanoke again. Because of this, the fate of the colony was never discovered. For more than 400 years, historians and researchers have tried to solve the mystery of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Several theories have been proposed. One of the most widely accepted theories is that the colonists joined nearby Native American tribes. The settlers may have struggled to survive on their own and eventually integrated into local communities. Some later reports from explorers described Native Americans with gray eyes or other European features, which has led some historians to believe the colonists may have lived among them. Another theory suggests that the settlers moved inland in search of better land for farming and survival. Roanoke Island itself was not ideal for agriculture, so the colonists may have traveled deeper into the mainland to find a more suitable location. Archaeologists have discovered some English-style artifacts in inland Native American villages, which could support this idea. Some historians believe the colonists may have been attacked by hostile tribes. Tensions between settlers and certain Native American groups had existed in the past, so a conflict may have occurred. However, this theory is difficult to prove because there is little physical evidence of a battle or massacre. Another possible explanation is disease or starvation. Early colonial life was extremely harsh, and many early settlements struggled to survive. Illness, food shortages, and difficult living conditions could have gradually wiped out the colony. Yet even this theory lacks clear evidence. Today, archaeologists continue to search for clues about what happened to the settlers of Roanoke. Excavations around the island and nearby regions have uncovered small pieces of evidence, but nothing has fully solved the mystery. More than 100 men, women, and children vanished from history, including Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. The story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke continues to fascinate historians and the public alike. It remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. Imagine leaving everything behind, crossing a dangerous ocean, and starting a new life in an unknown land, only to disappear without a trace. No records, no survivors, and no explanation. Just one mysterious word carved into wood: CROATOAN. For centuries, the disappearance of the Roanoke settlers has puzzled historians and archaeologists. Many experts believe that the answer may not lie in a single event, but in a series of small decisions made by the colonists as they struggled to survive in an unfamiliar land. Life in early American settlements was extremely dangerous, and even the smallest mistake could lead to disaster. Some researchers believe the settlers may have slowly blended into nearby Native American communities. Survival in the New World required knowledge of the land, hunting skills, and farming techniques that the English settlers did not fully understand. By joining local tribes, the colonists may have found a way to survive. Over time, their identity as English settlers may have simply faded into the surrounding cultures. There are also historical reports from later English explorers who claim to have seen Native Americans with unusual physical features such as lighter hair or gray eyes. While these stories are not definitive proof, they have fueled speculation that the Roanoke colonists may have lived among native tribes for generations after their disappearance. Another possibility is that the colonists attempted to move further inland in search of better land and safer conditions. Roanoke Island was not ideal for long-term survival, especially for a growing settlement. Moving inland could have provided better farmland, fresh water sources, and protection from coastal storms and enemies. Modern archaeological studies have discovered English tools, pottery fragments, and metal objects in areas far from Roanoke Island. Some historians believe these artifacts may be evidence that the settlers relocated and tried to rebuild their community somewhere else in the region. However, without written records or confirmed remains, the exact fate of the colony remains uncertain. History has left us with only fragments of clues, scattered across time and landscape. Each new discovery adds another small piece to the puzzle, but the full picture still remains hidden. Today, the lost colony of Roanoke continues to capture the imagination of historians, researchers, and storytellers around the world. It stands as a reminder of how fragile early exploration truly was. More than 4 centuries later, the mystery remains unsolved, leaving one haunting question echoing through history: what really happened to the people of Roanoke?